Behind these walls lies a world most never see, a city within a city ruled by invisible lines of power, fear, and survival. This is Cook County Jail, the largest single-site jail in the United States. But beyond the cells and razor wire, there's another kind of prison. One made of politics, race, and human struggle. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to see isn't from rumor or movies. It's real. Verified. And it's happening now. Stretching across 96 acres on Chicago's southwest side, Cook County Jail is a city unto itself. Inside live more than 5,000 inmates on any given day, though the facility has held as many as 10,000 during peak overcrowding years. The jail operates like a small metropolis, with its own hospital, courtrooms, laundry service, and even an internal bus line that shuttles inmates between divisions. Yet this massive complex wasn't built all at once. Its story began in 1831, when Cook County's first jail was just a wooden structure near the Chicago River. Over nearly 2 centuries, the institution evolved, from a frontier lockup to a sprawling complex of 10 divisions, each reflecting a different era of criminal justice thinking. The divisions. Cook County Jail isn't one giant building. It's a network of divisions, some dating back to the early 20th century, others modernized in the 2000s. Each division houses a different category of inmate, from those awaiting trial to those convicted of minor offenses. Division 1. Maximum security, home to high-risk and violent offenders. Division 2. Minimum security dorms for non-violent inmates. Division 6. Medium security, the most crowded unit in the entire system. Division 9, nicknamed Supermax, is where the county's most dangerous detainees are held. But what few outsiders realize is that each division runs almost like its own micro-society, with its own culture, politics, and unwritten rules. A world run on fear and routine. From sunrise to lockdown, the jail's rhythm never stops. Breakfast at 5 a.m., counts at 7 o'clock, lunch at 11 o'clock, dinner by 4 o'clock, then total lockdown by 9 o'clock. Every movement is monitored by cameras and guards stationed behind reinforced glass. Inmates say it's not just confinement, it's choreography. One wrong move can trigger a chain reaction. In Division 9, guards wear stab-proof vests and carry tasers, while inmates communicate through vents and walls, passing messages known as kites. These scraps of paper carry everything from contraband orders to coded warnings about rival gangs. The hidden lines of power. The jail's unseen divisions aren't only physical, they're social. Race, gang affiliation, and neighborhood loyalties dictate who eats with whom, who gets protection, and who's targeted. A former inmate described it in a 2017 Chicago Tribune interview. You don't need to ask who runs what. You just feel it the moment you walk in. Every corner belongs to somebody. Correctional officers often rely on these divisions to maintain a fragile balance. Breaking up gangs isn't always the priority, keeping violence predictable is. In some units, leaders from the gangster disciples, vice lords, and Latin kings control daily life, even influencing who gets access to telephones or commissary privileges. Human overload. At its worst in the 1980s and 1990s, Cook County Jail became a national symbol of overcrowding. Detainees slept on floors in gymnasiums, even in converted chapel rooms. Federal monitors described it as inhumane and unsanitary. In 2010, the U.S. Department of Justice filed findings accusing the jail of violating the Eighth Amendment, citing poor medical care, excessive force, and dangerous conditions. In response, officials invested millions into modernization, new facilities, digital booking systems, mental health units. Yet even today, watchdog groups report ongoing problems: delayed healthcare, overcrowding in intake areas, and violence that spikes whenever staffing drops. Lives in limbo. Most inmates here aren't convicted criminals. Roughly 70% are pretrial detainees, men and women who haven't been found guilty but can't afford bail. Many sit behind bars for months, even years, awaiting trial. One 2022 ACLU report estimated that Cook County's bail system effectively punishes poverty. Some detainees have bonds as low as $500, but still can't pay the $50 needed for release. For them, jail becomes a waiting room for justice that never comes. Glimpses of reform. In recent years, Sheriff Tom Dart has publicly advocated for criminal justice reform, calling Cook County Jail the largest mental health facility in America. His controversial statement stems from the fact that thousands of inmates suffer from diagnosed psychiatric conditions, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, yet receive little consistent treatment outside the walls. Dart's administration introduced therapy pods, art programs and vocational training to combat recidivism. Some praised the approach, others called it window dressing for deeper systemic issues. Critics argue that rehabilitation cannot thrive in a system built on containment, the unseen jailers. But beyond officers and inmates lies another class of unseen workers: nurses, chaplains, teachers, and maintenance staff who keep the city jail running. Many have spent decades inside, witnessing the same faces cycle in and out. A chaplain once told PBS Frontline, "We bury hope here more often than bodies." It's that line, hope, that separates the jail from freedom. And it's vanishing fast. It's known among inmates as Supermax County. Division 9 of Cook County Jail isn't just another block, it's the fortress inside the fortress. High concrete walls, double-barred windows, and steel doors designed to withstand riots. Every sound echoes through the corridor like a warning, a reminder that this is where Chicago's most dangerous, most unpredictable, and most feared detainees are kept. Origins of the fortress. Division 9 opened in 1975, during a period when Cook County faced a surge in violent crime and overcrowding. It was designed to isolate inmates who couldn't be safely housed elsewhere: gang leaders, murder suspects, and assault-prone detainees. But over time, it became much more than a high-security wing. It evolved into a psychological battleground, a place where control and chaos coexist. Unlike other divisions, where movement is somewhat communal, Division 9 operates under near-military discipline. Inmates are escorted in shackles, hands, waist, and feet chained, even when taken to showers or medical appointments. Cells are sealed with reinforced steel doors instead of traditional bars, cutting off sight lines and sound. Conversations travel only through vents or kites. Handwritten notes passed covertly between cells. A correctional officer once described it to the Chicago Reader. You feel the tension before you even step in. It's not a jail, it's a pressure cooker. The gang geography of Division 9. Inside Division 9, the battle lines are invisible but absolute. Every tier, every cell block, every shower schedule is dictated by gang hierarchy. The gangster disciples, Black P. Stones, Vice Lords, and Latin Kings have carved out their sections with almost military precision. Even cell assignments sometimes reflect political negotiations between officers and inmates, separating rival gangs to avoid explosions of violence. In the 1990s, during Chicago's gang wars, Division 9 became a command post for the streets. Leaders serving pretrial stints were accused of running drug operations through coded phone calls and letters. Prosecutors later revealed intercepted communications that showed gang orders being relayed from Division 9 to neighborhoods across Chicago's South Side. The most infamous example came in 1997, when law enforcement cracked down on the gangster disciples' internal network. Wiretaps and informants revealed that directives from Division 9 influenced shootings, drug distribution, and even truce negotiations on the outside. Isolation in the human mind. Psychologists who have studied Division 9 describe it as a place that doesn't just confine bodies, it isolates minds. Cells are roughly 6 by 9 feet with solid steel doors, a narrow window, and a concrete bunk. Many inmates spend 23 hours a day locked in, with 1 hour of recreation alone in a small, caged yard. A 2015 report by the John Howard Association, a Chicago-based watchdog group, documented the effects of long-term isolation in Division 9. Severe depression, hallucinations, and suicidal ideation among detainees who'd been locked down for months. One former inmate interviewed after release said, "After a while you start talking to the walls. You hear voices that aren't there. That cell becomes your world, and your enemy." Despite reforms, advocates say Division 9 still embodies the darker side of America's pretrial detention system, a space where punishment begins long before conviction. The guard's dilemma. The correctional officers who work in Division 9 face a different kind of sentence, one of constant alertness. Every shift begins with a search for homemade weapons, called shanks, and ends with debriefings about threats, fights, or possible uprisings. In 2014, a guard was hospitalized after being attacked with a sharpened piece of metal hidden inside a shoe sole. The incident led to a week-long lockdown, during which inmates were confined to their cells 24 hours a day. Tension skyrocketed. The staff described it as living on edge, waiting for noise. Yet officers often find themselves walking a moral tightrope. Some develop empathy for the men they supervise, recognizing that many detainees are mentally ill or victims of circumstance. Others harden over time, adopting a control-first, question-later mindset that fuels mistrust on both sides. Sheriff Tom Dart once commented to The Atlantic, "You can't ask people to be both therapists and jailers. But that's what this system does. The sounds of survival. Nighttime in Division 9 is never silent. From behind steel doors come sounds that form a haunting symphony, the banging of fists, shouts through vents, the echo of someone kicking a door for hours just to remind the world they exist. Guards call it the rhythm of the row. For inmates, those sounds are both company and chaos. Some keep themselves occupied by exercising in their cells, push-ups, squats, pacing in circles for hours. Others write letters, sketch with pencil stubs, or pray aloud. One correctional counselor recalled finding poems carved into the paint of cell walls. Messages like, "Still human. Still here." It was graffiti but also testimony. Between justice and despair. Most men in Division 9 haven't been convicted. They're awaiting trial. Some have been there for years, caught in legal delays, denied bail, or unable to post bond. Their lives pause while time moves on outside. Critics say this undermines the presumption of innocence. A 2018 Cook County Board hearing revealed that over 30% of detainees in Division 9 were being held on non-murder charges, often aggravated assaults or weapons possession, but remained in maximum security due to prior records or classification algorithms. Those algorithms, critics argue, perpetuate racial bias. Black and Latino detainees are disproportionately assigned to higher security divisions, even when their charges are comparable to those of white defendants. Civil rights lawyers have called this digital segregation. The cost of confinement. Running Division 9 costs millions annually, not just in infrastructure but in human labor. Each tier requires constant supervision, maintenance, and mental health intervention. Yet even with these costs, violence continues to erupt. In 2020, during the height of the pandemic, Division 9 became ground zero for COVID-19 outbreaks inside the jail. Inmates described coughing fits echoing through the vents, while guards struggled to secure masks and sanitizer. At one point, Cook County Jail recorded one of the largest single-site outbreaks in the nation, with over 1,000 confirmed cases among staff and detainees combined. The pandemic exposed what reformers had been saying for years, that Division 9 was not just a security risk, but a public health hazard. Every journey through Cook County Jail starts in one place, Division 5, the Intake and Receiving Center. It's the first stop for every man and woman booked into the system. A chaotic maze of holding cells, medical screenings, fingerprint stations, and echoing corridors where the city's arrested are processed into the jail machine. This is where the system decides who you are. Not by name but by risk level, gang affiliation, and mental state. The longest wait in Chicago. When an arrestee leaves a Chicago police station, they're loaded into a van and driven down 26th Street toward California Avenue, the massive limestone complex that houses the Cook County Department of Corrections. The moment that van door slams shut, time slows to a crawl. Once inside, detainees often wait hours, sometimes days, before they're formally assigned to a housing division. The intake area, built decades ago to handle about 400 people at a time, has often been forced to process double that number. A 2017 investigation by the Chicago Tribune found that some new arrivals spent more than 36 hours in overcrowded intake cells without showers, bedding, or proper food. The cells are concrete, lit day and night by fluorescent lights that hum without mercy. Former detainees recall sitting shoulder to shoulder with dozens of strangers. No space to lie down, no idea when they'll move. "You just wait," one man said. "You wait until your name means something again." Classification, the sorting machine. When their number is finally called, detainees pass through a system of classification interviews. Officers ask questions about past arrests, gang membership, mental health, and personal history. But the process is often rushed. Decisions that can determine a man's safety for months may take just 5 minutes. Those who mention depression or suicidal thoughts are flagged for the Supermax Health Services Unit, which handles medical and psychiatric cases. Others are sent to general population, while high-risk or gang-affiliated individuals are routed toward Divisions 9 or 10. This triage system is meant to protect both inmates and staff, but it also hardens the lines that define the jail's unseen divisions. A single answer can change everything: what division you land in, who you bunk with, and whether you survive your first week. According to a 2019 report by the John Howard Association, over 40% of detainees entering Cook County Jail have a history of mental illness or substance abuse. Yet intake screenings often fail to capture the severity of these conditions. The result: mentally ill individuals are sometimes placed in regular population, where their behavior is misinterpreted as defiance instead of distress. The smell of desperation. Reporters who visited the intake unit describe it as an assault on the senses. The smell of sweat, disinfectant and anxiety fills the air. Voices overlap, guards shouting orders, detainees pleading for information, metal doors clanging shut. Every few hours, new buses arrive from police precincts across the city. The detainees range from first-time offenders to repeat felons, from teenagers to men in their 60s. Many are still in the clothes they were arrested in, blood-stained, torn, or soaked from rain. An NBC investigation once called it the most chaotic room in Chicago. The stripped identity. Before entering, detainees are told to remove everything: belts, shoelaces, jewelry, even family photos. Every personal item goes into a property bag that may or may not follow them through the system. In return, they get a beige uniform, slip-on shoes, and an ID bracelet. That bracelet becomes their name. It tracks meals, medication, movement, even medical visits. Without it, they don't exist in the system. A correctional officer interviewed by WTTW Chicago described the transformation. By the time they finish intake, they've already lost who they were. They're just part of the count now. First blood. Violence doesn't wait for housing assignments. Intake is where rival gangs, drunk arrestees, and frightened newcomers collide. With limited staff and constant movement, fights can erupt without warning. In 2012, surveillance footage showed a brawl that left 2 detainees hospitalized and several officers injured. Officers admit that the intake area is one of the most unpredictable spaces in the jail. "It's like a storm every day," said one sergeant. "You don't know who's walking in next or what they're carrying, fear, rage, or just exhaustion." For many inmates, their first hours in Cook County set the tone for everything that follows. A beating in intake can mark someone for months, labeling them as weak or a target. Others learn fast, talk less, move when told, trust no one. The hidden pandemic. When COVID-19 swept through Chicago in 2020, the intake area became a super-spreader zone. The constant flow of new arrestees made isolation nearly impossible. Detainees described being packed into holding cells with 40 others, some coughing, others visibly sick. Public health experts later traced several early outbreaks in Chicago back to Cook County's intake unit. The jail was accused of poor containment and delayed testing. In response, Sheriff Tom Dart implemented rapid testing, quarantine cells, and digital screening forms, measures that slowed the spread but couldn't erase the chaos. By April 2020, the jail had become the largest known COVID cluster in the United States. The experience revealed just how fragile the intake system was, built for punishment, not protection. The moment of assignment. After hours or days of waiting, each detainee's fate is decided. Division 2, Division 6, or, for the unlucky, Division 9. They're lined up, handcuffed, and escorted through metal corridors that hum with the echoes of every step. For some, it's the first time they realize the size of the place. Through narrow windows they see the watchtowers, the floodlights, and the endless fences topped with razor wire. One inmate later said it felt like being swallowed by a machine. From that moment forward, every move they make, every meal, shower, or breath, belongs to the system. And the system rarely forgets. When Sheriff Tom Dart called Cook County Jail the largest mental health facility in America, it wasn't a metaphor. It was a warning. Inside the walls of this massive complex, thousands of detainees suffer from psychiatric illnesses, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, severe depression, PTSD. Yet they're not in a hospital. They're in a jail designed for punishment, not healing. This is Division 8 Supermax Health Services, the so-called mental ward of Cook County Jail, a place where medicine, security, and desperation collide. A system built from a broken one. In 2012, Illinois closed half of its state mental health facilities due to budget cuts. Thousands of patients were released into communities without adequate care or housing. Many stopped receiving medication, spiraled into crisis, and were eventually arrested, often for minor or nonviolent offenses like trespassing, disorderly conduct, or theft. Within a few years, the burden fell squarely on Cook County Jail. By 2015, over one-third of its detainees were diagnosed with a mental illness. The numbers were staggering and unmanageable. Sheriff Dart told The Atlantic, "We became the dumping ground for every failure of the mental health system in Illinois." Inside Supermax. Supermax Health Services sits near the jail's western perimeter, connected by tunnels and corridors to the rest of the compound. At first glance, it looks like a small hospital: white walls, linoleum floors, nurses and scrubs. But look closer and you'll see what sets it apart. Every patient here wears a jail uniform. Every room has reinforced glass. Every door is controlled electronically. And behind every nurse stands an officer with a set of keys. Patients line up daily for medication: antipsychotics, antidepressants, mood stabilizers. Nurses distribute pills through narrow slots in metal doors. Some detainees take them willingly. Others refuse, either out of paranoia or distrust. A 2021 Justice Department report noted that medication compliance rates were as low as 60% in certain units, often due to inconsistent follow-ups or shortages in psychiatric staff. Life on the ward. Supermax is divided into several tiers: crisis stabilization units, general psychiatric housing, and observation pods. Each cell contains a steel bed, a toilet, and a small window, but no personal belongings. The walls are bare to prevent self-harm. Inmates deemed suicidal wear tear-resistant smocks known as turtle suits. They're placed in constantly monitored cells under 24-hour surveillance. Officers assigned here receive special training, but burnout is high. The emotional toll is immense. They're jailers and caregivers at once. One officer told Chicago Tonight, "You can't unsee some things. You watch someone go from screaming to silent, and you pray that silence isn't forever." The line between treatment and control. At Supermax, therapy sessions often happen behind bars. Counselors sit outside locked doors, speaking through grates. Group therapy, when available, takes place in fenced recreation areas under guard supervision. Critics argue that these conditions blur the line between treatment and containment. "You can't heal someone in a cage," said Dr. Nneka Jones-Tapia, the jail's former executive director and one of the first psychologists in the U.S. to run a major correctional facility. During her tenure, Dr. Tapia introduced trauma-informed care programs, art therapy, and mindfulness classes. Her initiatives gained national attention, transforming parts of the jail into what some called pods of hope. But the change was fragile. Budget cuts, staffing shortages, and the constant churn of detainees made long-term progress nearly impossible. "We're trying to treat trauma in the same place that causes it," she said in a 2018 interview. The stories behind the walls. Every number here represents a life derailed by neglect. One man, a Vietnam veteran suffering from PTSD, was jailed after an argument at a shelter turned violent. Another, diagnosed with schizophrenia, was arrested for shouting at traffic near downtown Chicago. Both ended up in Supermax, medicated and forgotten. Public defenders say these cases are common, people whose illnesses criminalize them. A psychiatrist who's worked in the facility for over a decade told NPR, "They're not bad people. They're sick people who got caught in the wrong system." When silence becomes dangerous. Suicide remains one of the leading causes of death inside Cook County Jail. Between 2016 and 2022, at least 12 detainees took their own lives, most while under psychiatric observation. Investigations found lapses in monitoring and communication between medical and security staff. In one tragic case, an inmate was discovered dead in his cell hours after guards claimed to have performed their routine checks. Surveillance later showed they hadn't. The incident sparked renewed scrutiny and led to policy changes requiring more frequent welfare rounds. The cost of caring. Treating mental illness inside a jail isn't just emotionally taxing, it's financially draining. Cook County spends tens of millions annually on mental health services, yet outcomes remain grim. The 2020 pandemic deepened the crisis. Supermax medical units overflowed as detainees showing symptoms of COVID-19 were isolated alongside psychiatric patients. The overlap created confusion, delays in treatment, and increased tension among staff. Despite all this, there are small victories. Detainees who stabilize, find faith, or reconnect with families. Some even leave better than they came. But the majority cycle back through, their treatment interrupted the moment they're released into a city still lacking resources. As one social worker put it, Cook County Jail isn't a hospital, it's a revolving door with doctors at the exit. The bigger picture. Experts argue that what happens at Supermax mirrors a national failure. Across America, jails have become de facto mental health institutions. From Los Angeles to New York, the same story repeats. Underfunded clinics close, police respond to crises, and jails absorb the fallout. Cook County is just the most visible example. A mirror of a broken system reflecting how America punishes illness instead of treating it. Yet inside those sterile halls, beneath the hum of fluorescent lights, the staff and detainees keep moving, surviving one day at a time. Because here, survival is therapy. If Division 9 is the fortress, then Division 6 is the living, breathing engine of Cook County Jail. It's where the system's pulse is loudest, thousands of men packed into cell blocks designed for hundreds, each trying to carve out a space to exist. To outsiders, Division 6 looks like a standard jail building, Long corridors, tiers of cells, a guard tower in the center. But inside it's a world of constant motion, noise, arguments, laughter, tension. It's the closest thing Cook County Jail has to a community, and also its most volatile one. A world of numbers. Built in 1979, Division 6 was meant to ease the overcrowding that had plagued the jail for decades. But instead it became its symbol. By the early 2000s, Division 6 regularly held more than 1,200 detainees, far beyond its intended capacity. Cells built for 2 people often held 3. Some slept on mats on the floor, others claimed space under bunks. The smell of sweat, disinfectant and metal hung thick in the air. Ventilation was poor, heat inconsistent. A federal inspection in 2010 described Division 6 as chaotic, noisy, and perpetually overcrowded. It wasn't hyperbole, it was a warning. The rhythm of the day. Every morning starts with a count. Officers walk the tiers, tapping bars and shouting names. The detainees rise, stretch, or sit silently, waiting for the clatter of doors unlocking. Breakfast comes early, trays of oatmeal or powdered eggs served through narrow food slots. Those who can afford commissary make instant coffee or trade snacks, creating small moments of comfort in an otherwise cold routine. After meals come movement, to court, to visitation, or to the recreation yard. The corridors fill with sound. Shuffling chains, radio chatter, shouted greetings between inmates from different blocks. It's a rhythm that never stops, a heartbeat that keeps the jail alive even when hope dies. The codes of survival. In Division 6, survival isn't about strength alone, it's about reading the room. Inmates quickly learn the unspoken rules. Don't stare too long. Don't touch another man's tray. Don't ask personal questions. And never ever snitch. These codes maintain an uneasy peace among the hundreds of personalities forced to coexist. But they also create invisible hierarchies. Men who command respect through charisma or fear. Gangs still hold power here, but less overtly than in Division 9. The politics are quieter, negotiated through gestures and whispers. One former detainee described it as a classroom where every student is armed with something to lose. The guard's balancing act. Correctional officers working Division 6 face a paradox. They must enforce discipline without provoking chaos. Too much control sparks rebellion, too little breeds danger. In a 2018 interview, a veteran officer compared it to working in a room full of dry gasoline. You say one wrong thing and it's on. You can feel the temperature shift when something's about to happen. To maintain order, officers rely heavily on routine and presence. They walk the tiers every few minutes, make small talk with inmates, and watch for subtle signs. Tension in posture, sudden quiet, or a crowd gathering near a single cell. But constant vigilance takes a toll. Turnover is high. Burnout is common. Some officers develop compassion fatigue. Others adopt detachment as survival. The hidden economy. Even behind bars, money moves. Commissary goods, instant noodles, candy bars, soap, become currency. A pack of ramen can buy favors. A Snickers bar can buy silence. Phones, officially banned, sometimes appear, smuggled through corrupt staff or visiting rooms. Contraband cell phones have exposed fights, corruption, and even gang coordination inside Division 6. In 2016, a leaked video showed inmates filming rap battles and gambling sessions on contraband phones, prompting an internal crackdown. But the video also revealed something deeper: creativity, boredom, and the desperate need for identity in a place designed to erase it. The fight for space. Overcrowding doesn't just create tension, it breeds violence. Fights break out over showers, phones, or even seats in the common area. Officers often struggle to respond fast enough in the labyrinthine layout. Surveillance footage from 2014 captured a brutal 2-minute brawl that left several inmates unconscious before guards intervened. No weapons, just fists and desperation. Medical staff report dozens of injuries every month: fractures, lacerations, concussions. But many go unreported, as inmates fear retaliation or loss of privileges. Violence isn't a surprise here, one nurse said. It's part of the weather. The mental toll. The psychological strain of Division 6 is immense. With limited movement, little privacy, and constant noise, even stable men begin to unravel. Insomnia, anxiety, and paranoia spread like invisible infections. A 2020 John Howard Association report found that nearly half of detainees in medium security divisions displayed symptoms of untreated mental distress. Yet mental health staff are stretched thin, often responsible for hundreds of cases each. To cope, inmates create routines, workouts, reading groups, or storytelling circles. These small acts of structure keep sanity alive. Moments of humanity. Amid the chaos, glimmers of humanity persist. A guard sneaks an extra milk carton to a hungry detainee. A preacher visits, handing out small paper Bibles through the bars. An inmate writes poetry, mailing it to his daughter every week. There are music sessions, chess games, and collective prayers after tragedy strikes. These fleeting moments remind everyone, staff and inmate alike, that Division 6 isn't just a warehouse of bodies, it's a warehouse of souls. As one chaplain said in a 2021 PBS documentary, "If you listen closely, you'll hear laughter mixed with tears. That's the sound of survival. A system at its limit." Despite periodic reforms, updated surveillance systems, improved lighting, expanded programming, Division 6 remains a mirror of the entire American jail crisis. Overcrowded, underfunded, and overburdened. Officials insist conditions have improved since federal oversight ended in 2017. But watchdogs still report recurring issues: vermin infestations, delayed medical care, and excessive lockdowns. The jail continues to walk a tightrope between control and collapse. Every new detainee added to Division 6 tilts the balance a little further. And somewhere inside, among the noise and tension, are men waiting for trials that may never come, the invisible citizens of Chicago's hidden city. Narrator, slow, reflective tone. Cook County Jail isn't just a building, it's a living organism. Every door that slams, every count that echoes, every name called through a speaker adds to a story that never really ends. Inside these walls, justice meets humanity, and sometimes, neither wins. Men and women wait for verdicts that never come. Guards carry home the ghosts of their shifts. Families sit miles away, praying for a phone call that says, "I'm still here." Cook County Jail is not just part of Chicago, it's woven into its DNA. It reflects the city's struggles with poverty, race, mental health, and survival. To some, it's punishment. To others, it's proof that the system itself is on trial. And when those gates finally open, when a detainee steps out into the cold air of freedom, Cook County never really lets go. Because once you've lived inside its unseen divisions, a part of you always stays behind the wall.